Welcome back to Naval Action and episode 31 of A Letter to the King. Those of you new to the series, A Letter to the King is my attempt to describe the various combat and conquests taking place on Euro PvP 1. And of course we're very excited this week because it's the 9.96 patch has come rolling in and pretty much everything's changed. So although we'll have a look at where we were, as we do with tradition, where we were at the start of the week, was somewhere completely new with the map reset. I forgot to take a screenshot of the in-map game, so we'll have to rely on the garish image provided to us by our lovely devs. And what this map fundamentally shows is Spain owns pretty much everything. Our alliances pretty much stayed as they were. We need to talk about this though in a moment because that in itself could prove to be a problem. But currently you've got the British, the Americans and the Dutch in a group, and you have the Spanish, the French, the Swedes and the Danes in a group, and the magnificent pirate nation doing as she sees fit, when she sees fit, to who she sees fit. I know they're not a nation, but they're a bunch of renegades who sail around together causing mischief. So I'm not sure if port counts matter anymore, but they are indicative. We've got regions at the moment. Of course, we don't really have regions, we have counties. Everyone calls them regional battles, but they're actually for counties. If you look at the region of, South America, I think it's got 5 counties in it. So I don't know if this will stay as my barometer of movement, and it in itself is only an abstract description, but it does give you a feel for the size of a nation. So Spain has 182 ports, which is more than everybody else puts together. The Brits start off with 70, very fragmented, however. The French start off with 38, quite fragmented in 3 different areas. The pirates start off with 27, and they're more or less in a group. The US is down to 11, the poor Dutch are down to 9, the Danes are down to 5, and the Swedes are down to 5. What does that look like, or what's been happening on the map? Now, I've avoided my animations for this first episode. I need to work out how I'm going to do the regional, or to be more accurate, county conquests. There was a mixture of active and inactive port battles. There was a certain amount of sort of nation swapping going on. I know that Spain had sort of decided where it was and wasn't going to defend. So we saw, for example, the pirates. I think this is now, you'll have to give me a while to get used to all these different counties / regions, but the pirates took Baracoa from Spain, and I believe the Spanish took, I think this is Los Maritres or some such thing. The Spanish took that from the pirates that was held around here from the pirates. I don't believe they were contested at all. I could be wrong, but I don't believe they were contested. The Danes took the Virgin Islands from the Brits. I know the Brits didn't defend that. The Danes have got a real issue in that they're wedged between allies at the moment, so that's going to be a real challenge for them to expand. Now, I'll talk about this a bit later, but the Danes at the moment are allied with Spain now. If we go back to the last 6 months, the Danes really held this whole area here that the Spanish have got off Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And now that's in their allies' hands. So unless they tactically allow their alliance to drop, and that's actually much harder to do now because alliances run for 3 weeks. So I think it's probably 10 to 15 days before the Danes could even imagine pushing into this area. And that assumes the Spanish are happy for that to happen. Now, they may well be, because the Danes are a mighty ally to have. But at the moment, the Danes have got a bit of a problem for expansion. The Swedes also took the Leeward Islands from the Brits. I don't think the Brits tried to defend that. The Swedes also took land here from the Dutch. I'm trying to remember. Bovenwinds or some such thing. I'll probably pronounce that with my excellent pronunciation. France took Dominica from the Brits. I don't think that was defended with any gusto. The Dutch took two sets of counties from Spain, Caracas and Gulf de Meccano or something. Now, my understanding is the Spanish have pretty much said to the Dutch, we won't defend anything west of a certain point. I think it's Cabo de Vela, which is maybe somewhere around here. We won't defend anything east of that, I should say. So this gives free rein for the Dutch to recapture what they might consider their ancestral lands. And of course, because the French and the Swedes are allied with Spain, it's not like they can come in and defensively take or preemptively try and take these lands earlier. I've managed to chop off the bottom of the map in my excitement. But basically the Brits took Providence from the Spanish. That was not contested. They also took Costa Rica with a battle at Matina, and that was contested, and we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about the contested ones. That was contested. And the Brits managed to prevent the French from taking Bridgetown, and we'll talk about that in a moment because that was an excellent bit of biffo. Nearly broke the server, that one. And I believe, rather funnily, the Dutch accidentally triggered 100% hostility. A lot of the Dutch PvEers sail out of a couple of these free ports, and I think they accidentally triggered hostility up here. I don't think they attempted to take it. I could be wrong on that because that was this morning. So I'm not really sure if the Dutch genuinely went for that. From my intel, and it could be dodgy, I believe this was an accidental triggering of hostility. It was PvEers PvEing and tipped it over. Now, two of the more interesting battles. The French decided to kick the Brits out of Bridgetown, south of their capital. And this was a fantastically arranged fleet. Now, I know the French tried to rally the Swedes and the Danes to assist them. However, the Swedes and the Danes decided that while the British were engaged down here, they would take advantage and go on the redonky-donk sail up to Bermuda, which is it's a 3-hour sail in your first-rate ships. And of course, if your ship dies, it's probably going to respawn. I don't know where it respawns. Maybe one of these free ports somewhere bloody miles away. It's going to be 2 hours to get back. I think it's called River something. It's one of the free ports. And so while the Brits were defending Bridgetown and attacking Martinez, the Danes, with I believe a fair amount of Swedish help, managed to agitate Bermuda to the point that is now set up for a port battle early in the new week, and that's going to be very exciting. That's going to be a first-rate port battle miles from anywhere, and we'll talk about that more in a moment. But this battle down here was a spectacular battle. The French came in with 2 and arguably 3 fleets, a significant screening fleet with their main fleet coming in behind it. The Dutch just poured in support of their British allies, and without the Dutch support, I suspect we would have had a full 25 v 25 port battle. But the Dutch primary fleet engaged and staved off the French second-rate screening fleet, and then a combination of Brit and Dutch fourth rates managed to sink not every man, but they sank half at least of the French fourth-rate fleet, with the rest of it escaping. And so what we learnt from that, and I'm more than happy to share, of course, is that when a port is ready to be contested, fundamentally the timer starts. The longer you take to get into that port, the more time it eats up of the time you have available for capturing the port. And if after 40 minutes no enemies have appeared to take the port, then that port battle ends. Approximately 40 minutes. It's hard to be precise. The other thing you should know is that when you're entering a port battle, you need to have some personal hostility points. So when you go to enter a battle, if you haven't participated in agitating that county, in getting it ready for a port battle, you'll have no personal hostility points in that region or, in fact, county. And as such, you can't enter the port battle unless one of your mateys who's going in has got hostility points and they've got spare hostility points that then overspill to the rest of the group. Now, this is good because it stops people who haven't participated just YOLOing in. I don't think you need the same to defend. I'll work this all out and I'll do an instructional on it, but I'm still getting my noggin around it myself, and there's obviously no information provided from Games Labs as to how this works. So after 40 minutes, the time elapses. Now, within the port battle itself, it's still the old style port battles, and apparently they're the ones that's going to change in the next patch, along with raids, which are mysterious but sound very exciting. So this was defended, and the French were repelled, and I'm sure they're going to come back. The other one was down here at Matina. And this was a full-blooded contested port battle. I think the Spanish might have been 1 or 2 ships short. I know someone turned up in a Lagros venture and quickly scurried away before anybody noticed. But have a look at this, because this is gorgeous. This is, I'm at the vanguard, I'm at the front of the British fourth-rate fleet, which comprised of Ingies, Agamemnons, and the odd Connie. All of these ships here, this is the screening fleet that is a combination of second through to fourth rates, making sure that the Brits get in. And this was timed to perfection. When this lot first rendered into view sight for me, I napped myself and thought the Spanish had the world's biggest screening fleet. But how gorgeous is this game when she's working, eh? There was twice this numbers at Bridgetown, and in fact the server had a little bit of a hissy fit. But that's just a beautiful picture. This should win my own picture competition, apart from those swords which kind of betray the fact it's a game. Look at that beautiful bit of wallpaper almost. Now, on to probably the bigger meta picture. What we have now is we're in sort of the resource wars. So we've had the Three Generals War and the Grand Alliance War. I'm dubbing this without any authority at all the resource war, because of course what we've all realised is resources are super precious. So if you want Bermuda wood to build your ships, you have to take these ports up here, and these ports are the most annoying ports on the map to take. It's a 2-hour sail from pretty much anywhere, 3 hours in a first rate, to generate hostility in these waters. And if you die, you respawn 1 billion miles away. So a real tip of the hat to the Danes and the Swedes who kept turning up here. You guys are nuts, and I salute your nuttery. I sailed up there myself to create a defensive outpost, and let me tell you, 2.5, 3 hours at sea is unenthralling as a bit of travel goes. We've quickly learnt that the resources you need to build a ship are scattered across the map. So live oak is only makeable, and now the ports don't make it. You have to do it yourself, apart from the odd AI delivery that happens. There's 2 ports here that make live oak. So if we want live oak, you have to control these 2 areas or be prepared to smuggle in and smuggle out. There's only 6 or 8 ports that do silver, so there's a couple down here, there's a couple around here. And silver, even to build anything above a frigate, you need furnishings. If you need furnishings, you need silver. So again, there's lots of guys smuggling around. And we see here the Danes wedged between allies, which is why they're probably up here causing trouble. So this is going to become a really interesting situation. There's only 6 or 8 ports with gold. So all of a sudden, it's not about how many dots you have. It's about how you can get the resources together to replenish and enable your fleet. And so a few people have said, oh, I can't wait for Letter of the King, where you talk about the patch. Letter of the King's really meant to talk about the combat, but I will touch on a few of the patch things. Most of it, there's a lot of stuff going on that's changing, so it's a bit early to make the call on it. I've done a video on the new map. The new map is fantastic, and is compared to the old map. Still a bit of work could be done, but the new map's really good. Port battles and hostility. Well, it's all about balance at the moment, and they're tweaking this, and they're sort of doing very bipolar tweaking. So on the first day, it took about 6 hours for 3 or 4 fleets to turn a port from 0 to the best part of 100%, ready for hostility. On the second day, it was 10 times harder, so it would take 60 hours, which means you couldn't do it because you get a 20% decay on hostility points overnight. That's been reduced now. I don't know what to yet. And then on the third day of the third mini patch, it was actually easier than it was on the first day, which is why the magnificent Danes with their Swedish friends managed to flip Bermuda in 3 hours or so. But fundamentally, the rules are this. If you do the combat missions, you, in essence, have a medium effect. It's now quite a big effect on generating hostility. You can deliver war supplies. That's a bit of a slow effort to generate hostility. If you do PvP and sink baddie ships, then you generate loads of hostility that way. And really that's what the devs are trying to do. They're trying to make the PvE generation cause defenders to come out and try and anti it and generate PvP. So there's going to be a bit of balancing going on here. The devs have said they're going to get very grumpy monkeys with abuses and people using alts as a way of generating hostility or influencing port capture. So let's try and be good, all of us, on that. I know it's tempting. The other element is, of course, you can only schedule 2 ports at the same time, which at the moment means port battles are sort of every 2 days, because as soon as ports are captured, people go into generation mode. I suspect that for a little while, there'll be a lot of uncontested port battles until people hit the boundaries of each other's sort of nations, where all of a sudden the resources and the shipbuilding becomes very important. For me, in the Aussie time zone, it's a bit of a disaster because basically, and this is not a criticism of the Euro guys, but the Euro guys, they set up their port battles on their time, and there's just no time in the Oceanic time zone for a battle to take place. I personally would prefer it if you could have 3 battles a day, 2 in one 12-hour zone and 1 in a second 12-hour zone. At the moment, in the Oceanic time zones, you'd probably end up with 15 on 15 or 20 on 20 port battles. But that would grow if it was more possible and certainly give people more of a target. I was chatting to a dev about this, and he said, look, raids are coming in the next patch. So you're sort of measuring a 3-legged table at the moment. When you see raids, I think you'll be happy. So let's see if that's true. Trading. So there's the new trading missions, which on the first day were crazy bonkers. One of the mates in my clan made $1 billion gold. $1 billion gold. Because he realised there was all these crazy bonkers trading missions. I should say most of that money has been given back / taken by the devs. However, the trading missions are interesting, so quite often if you cap a trader, they've been far and few between. I believe they've been put back into the game. You could get some really interesting loots, and those loots you can then take on delivery missions. What you'll find is that the delivery missions tend to be, if you go to any port, they tend to be to take some exotic good to the nearest national capital, not nearest, to a national capital that's, say, 4 to 5 map squares away. Now, that's not a golden rule, but that's an indicative rule. And there's good money to be made there, especially if you happen to know where you can get those exotic goods, or you happen to have snaffled a bunch. On the first couple of days, the weights of the trading goods were ridiculous. Some of them were like 600 tons or 1,500 tons and were impossible to ship. That's been balanced a little bit now. However, some of them would still require multiple trips to trade, and of course with all the risk of trading. Trading prices have sort of gone back to almost their pre-patch prices, but of course the ports don't produce anything now, so trading is far more interesting. And the weights of goods have been fixed. They were a bit stupid on the first day. Crafting is so hard now. So to build a ship, what we would have, built a yellow ship in the past, requires fine woods, and it requires specialised fine woods based on the trim you're adding to the ship, build strength, speed, rigging quality, etc. And those fine woods only come from you harvesting woods from your own production facilities. So first of all, you have to find an allied port to put those production facilities in. And then tragically, so I harvested 500 live oak yesterday, and I got no fine live oak at all. Whereas one of my mates harvested 200 live oak and got 50 fine oak. So it's RNGesus, and we all hate RNGesus, so that might need a bit of balancing. But what I do like, and this is probably a general thing on the whole patch, is I like the idea of everything they're doing. I have to say I'm not a big fan of exactly how they're doing it right now, and I do feel as though they could have done the maths on things a bit better, like hostility generation. They could have kind of done that before they gave it us. I know we're testing, but they could have, on day 2 when they patched the hostility, the fact it would take 60 hours of 3 fleets grinding missions in order to tip a port, they could have worked that out. It is only maths, it's not that difficult. And the same went with the weights. The notion that taking wood from a shallow port would need 30 trips to move just 3 days worth of wood generation. They could have worked that out. I don't really think that was very good at all. But I do like the idea that golden ships with a regional bonus are hard to build and will be a real prize to capture or to own one. And I think attrition is going to play a huge part in the next few weeks as the wars continue. So that's really the crafting. It's so much harder now. And we're still learning where the various crafting bonuses are. I don't think they're regional. I think they're based on the county you're in, but I need to find that out. Keep your eye on the forums, which I believe are back up now. They were down for a couple of days, because some of the guys are putting fantastic info in there, and the fact they're sharing it is just brilliant, and researching it and so on and so forth. New ships, well, they still haven't got the blueprints given out. I was really impressed to hear that some of the guys who won the blueprints from the excellent 3v3 competition have given or are giving them away to other nations to create balance between the nations. And that's a double hat tipping to those folks doing that. The one Jura ships are interesting. I've captured a few of them. This is God help me with this one, an Endymion. Sounds like a sort of Pokemon, doesn't it? Sounds like this Endymion, or this will evolve into the Indiaman if I feed it enough. But you'll see this one here. It's made of this new Bermuda cedar wood, which is one of the new wood types. But it's got 2 regional build bonuses. So that's very interesting. It's got a strong hull bonus, an agile hull bonus. Now, obviously, they don't tell you what that is, because that would be useful. But this is the new 1 Jura Endymion Class 5 ship. Look at the speed. I've loaded cannons onto this thing. Almost 15 knots out of the box. Now, historically, it was the fastest ship the Brits ever made. It could do 15 knots, but it didn't have the class of cannons that this baby has on it. And it's got a reasonable broadside on it, and reasonable strength for a class 5, but it turns unbelievably badly. It's just awful. It's fantastic in a straight line, but it's like they forgot to put a rudder on it. Anyway, I'll do a review on this ship. It's a fantastic tagging ship. ROE and combat, so they're still playing around with this. So the new circle's interesting. It's much harder to tag a faster ship now. If you're in a quicker ship, it's much easier to get out of that small tagging circle they have. But the tag-in circle is absolutely huge. You're dragging half the friggin' zone. And of course, the other thing they've done is they've completely changed the way carronades work. And again, I think the balance on this is possibly a little off. So carronades have gone from being perhaps OP to being kind of rubbish. You've got to get real close with them. Now, maybe that's okay. But it's a real shock to the system. So if you were like a Caro Connie captain, you probably rated your Connie as being superior to an Ingermanland or an Agamemnon because you could get nice and close and just slaughter them. Well, by the time you're up close now, you've probably lost a third to half your health because your carronades at range are just bouncing off the sides due to the parabolic curvature of their ballistics now. So they might have gone a wee bit far with that, and then if you consider the fact they've upped the penetration of things like 9-pounders, the class 6 and 7 cannons are kind of useful again. So they may have gone a wee bit far. Combine that with the new crew damage you get when you get snotted, even with good armour. In fact, it's the good armour that's doing the snotting. It's the splinters damage. On the first day, that was crazy bonkers. I killed 329 crew with a rake on a Vic, in a Vic, on a Vic. 329 crew. I wiped out the crew of a Trincomalee with one shot. Now, they've calmed that down a bit, but crew damage is now a significant thing, and the doctor perk or surgeon, whichever one it is, that gives you 70% of your crew back, is a bit of a must-have if you're out there doing missions. So I think they've kind of, again, we need a lot more balance in here. And again, I do wonder, could they not have done the maths a little bit before they released it? Anyway, we are testing, but there's testing and there's testing. I think the life of a pirate just got way harder. So it was always harder with fleets. It's now harder to get people in the little circle. Of course, the battle closes instantly. So if you're running around with a fast tagger and a couple of thumpers, that's much harder now because the thumpers, even if they're in the circle, are bloody miles away. The port defences along the coast, those big square fortifications you see, they fire, I think it's 64 pound 48-pound shots, but they have like 60 cannons on them. It's ridiculous. I saw 5 of 8 ships get sunk by one of those. Thankfully, I was the one being attacked, so I was very grateful for it. But I think being a pirate along the coast now, which of course historically is exactly where you were a pirate, has become very hard. And the tagging circle, again, like I say, if you've got a quick ship, and of course everyone's sailing around with fleets now, so the life of a pirate has become way harder, and of course there's still no content for pirates. At the moment they are a nation for all intents and purposes, despite the complaints that they are not a nation. Well, they are at the moment. And they're in desperate need of content. To my knowledge, Raids is coming. I don't know if that'll be a pirate thing. I wonder if that's why we've got 500 loot boxes now. And I guess the other thing that stands out, and it's always hard to do this, is imagine if it's your first day in the game. Wow, hasn't it got hard? You've got to travel miles. I did a midshipman mission to teleport a ship the other day. So this would be in a cutter. I was up against a snow. Imagine coming up against a snow in a midshipman mission. Good grief. So I think it's got harder. Now, maybe that's what they want the game to be. And maybe, the first time you build a gold ship will be the equivalent of running around in end raid gear in an MMO or something. But compared to where we were, it's got 3, 4, 5 times harder. You have to do a lot more travelling, which some folks think takes too long. So that's my quick thoughts on the patch. As I learn about these things, not so much that one, who cares? As I learn more about these things, I'll try and chuck information up, but check the forums. Plenty of other good folks, better folks than me are doing that. So we'll have a look at what happened as a result of the relatively small amount of conquest that went on. The Spanish lost a few ports, and that has to happen because they own too many. The Brits lost a few, and that's thanks to the Danes, the Swedes, the French, every bugger, every man and his dog were attacking British ports, the pirates. The French, small, they gained, they lost just one. The pirates snaffled up a net of 3. The Swedes, mostly at the British expense, snaffled up 10. The Dutch made 6, mostly off the Spanish. The Americans, oh, that's right, the Americans, I forgot to say that. The Americans did have a first-rate port battle against the Spanish. The Spanish repelled them, by all accounts, sinking half of the American fleet. And that was off the coast of Florida, I think. I can't remember. It was south of Sunbury. I can't remember the name of the region. Sorry, I forgot that in my overview. And the Danes made a small gain, again at the British expense. However, they really now are either they're going to have to let their alliance with the Spanish lapse, and I won't be able to be there because I'll be asleep. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. But the Danes will be attacking Bermuda early in the week, maybe even tomorrow. And I'm hoping someone records that because the Dane first-rate fleet is one of the best first-rate fleets to watch in action. Now, here's the thing. I suspect the Danes will have logged out in Bermudan waters and will have to log in. I don't really like that, but when you look at where Bermuda is, I just don't see how else you're ever meant to capture Bermuda. When you do capture Bermuda, and you get access to their beautiful Bermudan cedar wood, to move the cedar wood from Bermuda to your hometown is going to take you 2 hours. So it's a millstone around your neck anyway. So that's it for this week's naval action. It's the dawn of a new era, or error in the eyes of some. I hope you enjoyed my update. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. I will see you on the ocean, and I will catch you.